Hi, this is Alex Bridge. This is a little bit awkward. Hope you enjoy. For my first article, I decided to talk about the overpopulation subject, specifically in China. The article I found was written by a political science professor at the New York College of Pennsylvania, and he goes into depth pretty much just about the population increase that China's experienced over the last few decades and just how out of control it is when you compare it to other nations, like even like ours. It's seemingly absurd, and he also talks about some of the problems that come with that, specifically, pollution. Obviously, their country's in a place right now where they're manufacturing at such a rate that there's simply no way to avoid the massive amount of pollution being caused over there. But a lot of this is due to also the increasing population. They need to be able to keep up production and resources to sustain a population so large, and it just continues to grow, which is the irony of the whole situation. So the article also goes in to talk about the one child policy and how that was enacted in China. And I guess to me, when you read something like that and you hear about that, I've heard about that for a while. But when you really look into it and read about it, it's very interesting to think that a country literally made, in a sense, a law that you can only have one child because the population is getting so out of control. They can't sustain this kind of increase. So another thing I thought was interesting about the one child policy is, I guess, I read a quote from someone, a Chinese official who was kind of involved in it, and he said that the whole goal of the one child policy was essentially to control the birth rate for a single generation. And I never heard of such like a straight to the point explanation for the policy, so I thought that was really interesting. And that pretty much sums it up for the overpopulation section. It was really fascinating to read all the stats and the birth rate being 5.81 or whatever, and how they were the first country to hit a billion people. A lot of it's really fascinating and kind of scary at the same time to think if it doesn't slow down or get controlled in some way. So for my second article, I went with the cloning topic, and at first I was thinking quite literally cloning, an entire person. We probably all have thought about that. You've seen cartoons and whatnot. But when I looked it up in the library research database, it was interesting. The first things that were popping up were articles about cloning cells in order to combat diseases. And I thought that was really interesting. And I've heard of, DNA manipulation and all this kind of stuff before, but I guess I never realized, we by simply cloning the cells we already contain inside of our body, we can help fight really serious diseases. So I thought it was really interesting, I guess, just how powerful this science is becoming and the realizations being made. And it was really fascinating. The article was so scientific and used words and numbers so out of my realm that it was honestly hard to keep up. But essentially, it was a research article from the PLOS1, and it talked about recloning N27 dopamine cells in order to combat some of the Parkinson's effects. And I guess when they studied these cells that they were cloning, the cloned cells were able to become purified a little bit quicker, whatever that means. They were also able to grow at a faster rate, which I thought was very interesting. And essentially the article just summed up the fact that through essentially just recloning a cell that we already have in our body, you can help yourself combat these negative effects so much better. And I thought it was just unbelievably fascinating how in depth some of this stuff goes. And I wish I could understand most of what it's saying, but it was unbelievable. But yeah, those were my two articles and some of the things I found. In terms of the population in China, it's more just an awareness thing. I think most people know how outrageous it is and how it's still continuing to grow, but it's something that we really need to think about. And the cloning and research article, that's just more amazing. I think when it comes to positive health benefits that can come from cloning, I think this is something that should be supported and continue to be looked at.